I'm Carol Gravel. Welcome to my research presentation entitled A Tale of Two Countries, Exploring Facebook and Twitter for Rural Healthcare Professionals in Australia and in Canada. As medicine and technology evolve, we must ensure that our healthcare professionals, even in the most rural areas, have access to the continued education that will allow them to provide the best care possible. This was a tweet from a healthcare professional on Twitter that I used as part of my research. In a world that is more interconnected than ever before, tweets and posts like this one by healthcare professionals demonstrate a willingness to take advantage of social media platforms to communicate with each other. It's evidence that these platforms can transcend the traditional boundaries of classrooms, recognition events, and recruitment drives, to name a few. Most importantly, these online conversations by rural clinicians may provide a solution to the global issue that many rural and remote residents face, the considerable challenges in accessing appropriate health services, many of which struggle to secure resources and recruit and retain staff, says Burke, Humphreys, Wakerman, and Taylor, 2012. The research uses a grounded theory approach to explore the online conversations taking place to enable the discovery of theory from data, from Classer and Strauss, 1967. This theory provides a useful framework to explore and interpret the development of a theory about how Facebook and Twitter are being used, the differences in how hashtags are used, and next steps for communications professionals who work in rural healthcare. The primary research question for this research was, what differences exist in how rural healthcare professionals currently use Twitter and Facebook in Canada and Australia? A secondary question asked was, how are hashtags GoRural and RuralMed used differently across platforms? The objective for this research was to contribute to the scholarly literature about the differences in how rural healthcare professionals use Twitter and Facebook in Canada and in Australia. Through a content analysis, the hashtags GoRural, which is distinct to Australia, and RuralMed, which is distinct to Canada, were used to identify themes from the online discussions about rural health in the two countries. The hashtag RuralMed was used in this research because it was represented in tweets and posts by the Society of Rural Physicians of Canada, the peak body for rural physicians in the country. The hashtag GoRural was used in this research because it was used by the rural workforce agency I work for and is also used regularly by the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine, a peak body and educator for rural physicians in Australia. The nature of the research called for an exploration of practices oriented in the real world, i.e., what use differences exist in two social media platforms in Canada and Australia, as well as to explore a problem. How are two different hashtags used on these platforms? Therefore, a pragmatic approach was adopted. I obtained raw data from Twitter using the hashtags RuralMed and GoRural from May 3rd to the 30th, 2019. I also collected the Facebook data via manual compilation, which I did using a search for the hashtags via my personal Facebook account. The data set for Facebook encompasses January to May 22nd, 2019, and that was just to enable myself to obtain enough data from which to draw findings. Of the 200 posts that were deemed to be in scope, 105 tweets containing the hashtag GoRural and 67 tweets containing the RuralMed hashtag were used. On Facebook, 19 posts using the GoRural hashtag and 9 RuralMed posts were used as part of this research. As an exploratory research method, content analysis allows the researcher to gain a better understanding of the data through the distillation of words into fewer content-related categories or themes, says Elo and Gingnes in 2008. After familiarizing myself with the collected data from the two hashtags on Twitter and Facebook, words that became addressed content themes emerged. These became the categories for how the data was coded. Once the data was organized, the tweets and posts were reviewed again. They were coded 1 if they contained a content theme and 0 if they did not. The inductive coding based on grounded theory saw the creation of 9 themes, including recognition, education, future workforce, recruitment, isolation, connections, rural life, and other. For the theme recognition, it included the recognition of healthcare professionals who were retiring and included best wishes, congratulatory accolades to award recipients, information on how to nominate others for healthcare awards, and National Awareness Weeks, which recognize the work of specific individuals. I've included a post from a rural healthcare professional in this slide, and I'm going to do so for each theme that I discovered within this research, just to demonstrate the tweets and posts that were coded in accordance with these thematic rules. For education, another category emerged. This theme included conference updates, newspaper articles, links to journal articles, and other research findings. A third category that emerged was future workforce. The theme included specific callouts to medical students, inviting them to attend upcoming conferences, suggestive language in tweets and posts to consider opportunities in rural medicine, and positive experiences about working in rural communities. Recruitment emerged. The theme included posts and tweets on job opportunities for nurses, allied health professionals like physiotherapists, and general practitioners in rural Australia and Canada. Isolation appeared as a theme. The theme included posts and tweets that encompassed mental health. Connections was another theme that emerged. Well, the very essence of being on social media indicates a connection with others. Tweets and posts were categorized into this theme if they included more than one handle or tag with their tweet or post, and or included callouts to meet up with colleagues, as well as thank you notes for collaborations. Rural life emerged as a theme, and this theme included the difficulties of accessing rural healthcare, as well as snapshots of life as a rural healthcare professional. This theme was distinct from isolation because the nature of these tweets and information was about finding healthcare solutions for those who lived outside urban areas and the opportunities that existed for healthcare professionals who worked in rural areas. The final category that emerged was other, and these posts were coded as being other if they did not include the other themes mentioned and were about best practices in communicating online, such as providing advice on how to get more followers, sharing an image, and or posting inspiring quotes. Based on a summary of all the findings illustrated in this figure, the themes of education, connections, and future workforce were highly prevalent using the Rural Med hashtag on Twitter. In Australia, there was a high prevalence of the themes future workforce, education, and rural life using Go Rural on Twitter. However, there were broad similarities between the two hashtags. The themes of education and future workforce factor prominently in Australian and in Canadian rural healthcare conversations on Twitter. On Facebook, there was a high prevalence of the themes education, recognition, and rural life on Facebook in Canada. On Facebook in Australia, the themes of education, future workforce, and recruitment using Go Rural were highly prevalent. The theme education was most prevalent in rural healthcare conversations in both countries across the two hashtags. On both platforms, the theme isolation was of low prevalence. To answer the research questions we began with, what differences exist in how rural healthcare professionals currently use Twitter and Facebook in Canada and Australia? I can tell you that future workforce and recruitment are more prevalent themes on Facebook and Twitter in Australia than on either platform in Canada. The themes of recognition and rural life are more prevalent on Twitter in Canada than in Australia. And for the most part, Canadian health professionals use Facebook to communicate themes about recognition and education. To answer the second question posed, how are hashtags Go Rural and Rural Med used differently across platforms? The themes of education, connections, and future workforce were highly prevalent using the Rural Med hashtag on Twitter. In Australia, it was a bit different in that there was a high prevalence of future workforce, education, and rural life using Go Rural on Twitter. On Facebook, there was a high prevalence of the themes education, recognition, and rural life on Facebook using the Rural Med hashtag. On Facebook in Australia, the themes of education, future workforce, and recruitment using Go Rural were highly prevalent in Australia. Through a grounded theory approach, the research indicated broad similarities in the themes being discussed and the use of the hashtags to facilitate online discussion. The learnings from this research contribute to the existing literature and are helpful for communications professionals working in healthcare. The research reveals who some of the influencers are in rural healthcare in Australia and Canada. The themes of these rural healthcare conversations serve as topics healthcare professionals are comfortable engaging with. The hashtags serve as a generic way to organize information about the healthcare conversation. By working more closely with these rural health individuals and organizations, these prevalent themes can be enhanced to drive issue-based awareness, further the exchange of ideas to enhance professional development, and potentially increase interest about conferences and training opportunities. Given the global issues that sustainable, rural, and remote healthcare in the two countries face, social media provides opportunities to bridge technology and communities. These should be explored to their fullest. I want to thank you for your attention today. If you have any questions about my research, email me at carol.gravel@msvu.ca. Thanks.